Yo, my brothers, my sisters, and my ballers, welcome back to another match day of What's Football Without Fans with your favorite social football analyst, Tepiso Piti, aka Tepzoro. To the ballers passing by, I hope you like what you see because I surely like what I do. And make sure to join the returning ballers to continue to show me gang love and appreciation by liking, commenting, as well as to subscribe. So my ballers, this match day has been one that's been in the pipelines for a while now. I've been holding back, talking cack on Graham Potter, ranting about it. Reason being is because I was Potter in, The material that Chelsea has on paper was one that was needing a preseason, and I was for him getting a preseason. But fortunately, things didn't go that way, and I am all for him being gone as well, Clearly it shows that these owners mean business. They're not here to play around or mess up or waste any time. 2 managers sacked in their first season. Todd Bowley, Iqbali. Y'all better be onto something. And that brings me into speaking about the new caretaker manager. Who would have thought 2 years ago Lampard would be back in the dugout as Chelsea manager? Just imagine, after he got sacked, after winning 4-0 in the FA Cup, then the following day gets sacked with us 9th in the table. Who would have thought 2 years later, Super Frank, club legend, will be back in the dugout? And his appointment is as Chelsea as it gets. And he could even pull off a cup run in the Champions League, setting us through past Real Madrid, setting us through whoever we face between Bayern and Man City. It's just a Chelsea thing. And you can easily associate it with the new coach being Frank Lampard. The past 2 times we won the Champions League, it was through new appointments during the season, whether it be an interim coach in Roberto Di Matteo or full-time with Thomas Tuchel. The vibes are back, with Frank Lampard. We're hard on the front foot offensively, but hella open defensively as well. And with Thiago Silva still not back, I wonder what's going to happen. I'm waiting to see if he'll deploy a back 3 or back 4, as in his second season at Chelsea, he'd mainly use Reece James and Ben Chilwell in a back 4 formation, but it never paid dividends. And with Chelsea's recent managers in Tuchel favoring 3-4-3 and Graham Potter having more better days in recent times with Chelsea when deploying a back 3 rather than a back 4. I'm just waiting to see who he'll play in his midfield and how will Havertz be used. More so because he's mainly been used as a striker. And Lampard was one to play a striker, whether it be Werner or Tammy Abraham. I'm purely waiting to see if Dafro Fofana will get a chance or Aubameyang. The one thing that I'm hella hopeful for is Fofana getting a chance, as Lampard really gave the youth a chance. In his first stint at Chelsea, there was 8 players from the academy who managed to get their first minutes for Chelsea under their belt, under Frank Lampard being the coach. So we're just waiting to see how things go for Chelsea, More so, we're no more even looking at the league table. Just take us through, If you get a Europa Conference League spot, well done. 4th spot is out of the reckoning now. We're just wanting to see how we're going to go up against Ramadan Benzema, as they're calling him now, off the back of 2 hat-tricks. It will be interesting to see where João Felix plays under Lampard, whether he'll be shifted out to the left in a forward role or played up top. But the main thing that I'm waiting to see is Havertz's use, because I really want to see a striker being played. Fofana's there, Aubameyang is there. What's there to lose? What's there to lose in playing Havertz on and on and on and on and on and on and on? With him continuing to fail on and on and on and on and on, still living off of the goal he scored in Porto. It's enough now. We're tired of his glimpses, even though he's never played in his main role. In seeing Lampard being back, it could also resurrect Mason Mount's Chelsea career, as he's linked with a move out of the club this season, having had negotiations come to a standstill over his contract and extending it. Let's just wait to see if he may find form under Lampard with gaining his fitness back. But yeah, my ballers, Vibes FC is back, we now know the true, Chelsea supporters now know that true feeling of feeling like, Arsenal during their banter days, as well as Man United during their tough time. But let's just see how things go with Chelsea. On the other hand, though, with the main managers that we linked with in Luis Enrique and Julian Nagelsmann, I'll now discuss why I favor the appointment of Luis Enrique in the 2022-2023 season over Julian Nagelsmann. So Luis Enrique is one of those few coaches around Europe who's shown that he's able to play vertical football or horizontal football using a 4-3-3. So mainly with it being horizontal and circulating around, that's more tied to managers like Pep Guardiola, who can also go through the transition vertically, but it's circulated. Managers as well as Maurizio Sarri, whose name I can put in. Now with it being vertical, it's quite direct, it aligns more to the German football of, with Klopp. Tuchel was very vertical in being direct when he'd used Reece James as well as Chilwell in only using two in the midfield. Julian Nagelsmann is one who also does that in using a double pivot and then enforcing his fullbacks to get up the pitch and having the wingers come inside the pitch. I'd mainly pick him because this greater position that we'll have, he only needs to use one midfielder as a pivot, which can enable Chelsea, depending on who he may deploy as the forward players, it can enable Chelsea to use a midfield to attack box. So a midfield to attack box is when the deep midfielders are joined with the more attacking midfielders, or even an attacking forward in creating a box of four players. That's picked up recently through teams like Arsenal, with Arteta deploying Zinchenko to play alongside Partey and then creating a box with Xhaka and Odegaard. Man City also devastated Liverpool this weekend with John Stones aligning with Rodri and then having Gundogan and De Bruyne centrally in the box, with them still having Mahrez on the right as well as Grealish on the left with Julian Alvarez up top. He uses this really well, and versus a Nagelsmann who more so deploys a defensive box. In saying he deploys a defensive box, recently we've seen how he's used Kimmich and Goretzka as his main double pivot, or he could even use at times Sabitzer from Leipzig, which he also did at Bayern. Usually that box isn't there, or if it's anything of a box or rectangle, it becomes six with Muller and the striker, whether it be Mane, Choupo-Moting, or even Leroy Sané coming in from the wing, allowing Alphonso Davies space on the left wing. So he's deployed with the back two in De Ligt and Upamecano, then the double pivot of Goretzka and Kimmich, and with any of the forward players. But it's mainly a defensive box that Nagelsmann uses, as there are two holding midfielders rather than just one. Hence why I favor the move of Luis Enrique. They both press on the front foot off the ball, using an offensive block in a defense when not having the ball defensively. And Luis Enrique is smart in getting his attackers to defend from the front when off the ball. He used that to devastating effect with Barcelona. As you may recall, games when Barcelona won the treble at the Champions League run, facing Man City, when Neymar was all over Zabaleta on the left defensively at the Etihad, as well as Messi on Clichy. Paid dividends again at the Parc des Princes versus PSG when they won 3-0, with Suarez not giving David Luiz any chance to breathe, as well as in the Champions League final where Juventus used Pirlo deep to start the moves, and he really couldn't because of how little space he had with Suarez man marking. So I'm definitely in favor of the Luis Enrique being appointed as Chelsea's permanent manager from next season. We've seen how he plays with Spain, where it's unfortunate that they've had cup runs. Look, he failed at the World Cup, but he did well at the Euros, reaching the semi-finals. He was able to take Spain to 2 UEFA Nations League finals. Okay, obviously they lost in the final to France, and now they're in the finals of the 2023 UEFA Nations League, which are still to be played, even though it's the semi-finals then the finals. We remember how well in last 2021's Euro semi-finals against Italy, how Pedri was used on Jorginho, giving him no time to play, as well as Dani Olmo hovering off the ball very hard on Verratti, where Verratti literally became invisible in that game, because with Italy it's usually Jorginho taking the ball out to put the midfielders in Verratti and Nico Barella in play. So I prefer Luis Enrique's man-marking tactics that he uses with his attackers off the ball versus a Julian Nagelsmann who enforces his attackers to go wide and allows the opposition to come through the center, which creates traps, where I prefer opposition going wide since the poles are not there. But in speaking about Julian Nagelsmann, he can also offer a lot, and if anything, he commits more bodies in attack. We've seen it with Bayern Munich, where as well as during his Leipzig days when Timo Werner was up front with Poulsen and Angelino would hit that line hard. Forsberg was there assisting, as well as Sabitzer, in just creating havoc. He's done the same at Bayern Munich, where people say Leroy Sané's game has changed because of injuries, but it's not really due to injuries. It's more of the tactics of the coach, where Leroy Sané pulls in from the left closer to Thomas Müller, and Alphonso Davies has all the space for himself down the line. We could also see that being deployed at Chelsea, with maybe Chilwell being used heavily down the left and then Mudryk or Felix coming deeper in, or could even be Sterling. He always uses one fullback at times. So at Leipzig, I hadn't seen him during his Hoffenheim days, but at Leipzig the fullbacks were Mukiele on the right, who's now at PSG, as well as Angelino, and Mukiele would sit back whilst Angelino would have that line, and in covering the space that is left, one of the holding mids would drift there. So at Bayern it's been Pavard sitting whilst Leroy Sané comes in from the left for Alphonso Davies or Lucas Hernandez to have the wing, and then Kimmich drifts in, positioning himself in the space that Alphonso Davies has left. With that sense, there's multiple players deployed in attack. There's Alphonso Davies, there's Thomas Müller already, Leroy Sané. Off the right it's Serge Gnabry, then up top you still have Mane. In last season would have been Lewandowski, now it's Mane. At times this season it's been Choupo-Moting with Mane's injury. There could be one beneficial factor with Julian Nagelsmann, even though it's good to hear he's holding out until next season, in that Christopher Vivell is the technical director now at Chelsea, and they worked well together at Leipzig. So there could be a sense of a continued relationship from Leipzig into Chelsea, and Christopher Vivell could have a great influence in having the board end up choosing Nagelsmann over Luis Enrique if it ends up being between them two. With these holding mids, the holding mids are literally deployed to be holding mids, with one sitting and the other being a true box-to-box. We've seen it with Leon Goretzka as well as Kimmich. So the same could be used with Kante potentially playing a role that Kimmich plays, and then Mateo Kovacic or Enzo Fernandez being like Leon Goretzka. Or it could even be Fernandez deep and then Kovacic driving through, as he's an amazing ball carrier. The one thing that I would give to Nagelsmann over Luis Enrique is the man's flexibility. He's quite unpredictable, and he's one of the most adaptive managers in Europe in planning against his opponents. You know, we could see him deploy a 3-1-4-2 or 4-2-3-1. During his early days at Hoffenheim, he played with the 5-3-2. With adopting greater quality at Leipzig, he changed in playing a 4-1-3-2, and with time still use a 3-5-2, with Werner coming to the party, playing alongside Poulsen. That's something you could also see under him at Chelsea, deploying two strikers, which is a dimension that isn't really used in the Premier League, but can cause unpredictability and enforce opposition centre-backs to sit off, as they may both have a man if they're playing with the back four or could still give the back three a tough time. So that's the one advantage that I would give Nagelsmann over Luis Enrique, in that he's very flexible and adaptive. We saw it with how he beat PSG recently in the Champions League with the first leg. Kingsley Coman, who's a player I didn't even mention, being used as a wing back and scoring the goal in Paris. The one thing is that he overcommits bodies. In doing that, he overcommits bodies, which caused a problem with the Bayern Munich board, as even though on the table looks good for Julian Nagelsmann with his time this season at Bayern Munich, even though when fired he was second, he had only conceded 2 goals in the Champions League in progressing Bayern Munich to the quarterfinals. But this season, Bayern Munich's matches had been very frantic. It had been a frenzy of attack and defense due to how many players he committed forward, and we'd also seen the same during his time at Leipzig, where there were multiple big defeats under his belt, including one at Old Trafford against Man United where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer won 5-0, So that's an area which could be his downfall, whereas with Luis Enrique, it's finding the goals, with holding all that possession and circulating the ball. At times you need someone to be progressive and to kill the opposition one-on-one, which is something he lacked for Spain at the World Cup, which would only be seen off the bench when he'd bring on Nico Williams. That was the main reason why Spain failed to score when facing stronger opponents versus when they faced Costa Rica in the first game, winning 7-0. So, my ballers, if it was up to me, I'd take Luis Enrique. But let's just wait and support Lampard, being the pride of London and being one of our greatest ever ballers. And with that being said, my ballers, that's how I end this match day. I hope you enjoyed the content. Make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until the next time, my ballers, live long.